Welcome, everyone, to the Monthly Movie Dispatch, the movie review show from friends that you can trust. Every week, we broadcast a review of a new film, talk about some film news, and recommend what to watch. We've been talking, critiquing, and gushing over movies since we were in high school, and we aim to bring you honest conversation about relevant cinema. My name is Shaun Bowlby. I'm here today with my brother, Brandon Bowlby.
How's it going?
It's going pretty good. So today we're going to be talking about the new Coen. I was about to say Coen Brothers film, but it is not. It's a Joel Coen film, The Tragedy of Macbeth, that came out maybe mid-December. So we're a little late on that, but there's been a lot of movies.
We were all on the couch together at your place watching a Seahawks game.
Right.
4 days before Christmas, and all of a sudden this Macbeth trailer comes on. It's like Joel Coen film. In 4 days you can watch it streaming.
That's right. It came out. It came out on Christmas, didn't it?
Yeah, it came out on Christmas, and we heard about it 4 days before it came out.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. But yeah, before we jump into that, we are going to have a brief discussion about something that we are very unqualified to talk about. But we're going to talk about it anyways. We're going to talk about Bill Shakespeare.
Oh, he's a Bill, is he?
Yeah, Billiam Shakespeare. You know that guy. Everyone knows him.
Okay.
He's been around for a while. And he is a pretty prolific writer, if you haven't heard. There are far more movie adaptations of his work than than certainly I even realized until I started doing some research. And he is all over the place, and it's pretty incredible once you really dig into his, I guess, filmography. How many things?
It sounds funny for you to say that.
Yeah, it is a little odd, but yeah, I mean, things as varied as from Lion King to 10 Things I Hate About You to very.
Wait,
literal.
so what are those based on? I'm just hearing this for the first time too.
Oh, The Lion King is based on Hamlet. A very family-friendly, toned down version of Hamlet. And then 10 Things I Hate About You is based on The Taming of the Shrew, one of his comedies. And then there's there's musicals like
Spielberg's West Side Story.
And not just Spielberg, although I am blanking on the name of the filmmaker who did the original West Side Story.
Stephen Sondheim.
Well, he's the writer of it, but yeah.
I think there's three different categories of Shakespeare movies. I think, and very much what we are going to talk about with the Tragedy of Macbeth today is category one. It's the direct adaptation, story, and the script is literally just lifted. The only thing different is maybe scenes are shifted around or things are shortened just to get them more in movie length. Yeah, because plays are usually a bit longer.
Yeah,
and then category two is the story's the same, but the dialogue is modernized, so it's not confusing 1600s Shakespeare jargon.
Yeah.
And then category three is what you're just saying, Lion King, West Side Story. It's
very loose adaptations.
Loosely based, the overall arcs are there, but everything else has been changed.
Yeah. And I would even say that there's some crossing even between those categories where it's almost a hybrid of different categories, like the movie The King that we were just talking about before the show is kind of an odd one where it's kind of a loosely based on four different Shakespeare plays, but also is kind of more of a historical piece than his plays actually
than anything else, with modernized dialogue.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean it's all over the place. So what's your relationship to him? What are your thoughts? And because you've seen quite a variety of.
Yeah, I mean, one movie that stands out to me because there's so many that I have. Like you said, we're not very qualified. I was looking through lists of Shakespeare adaptations. There's so many films that are like pretty famous that I haven't seen from like earlier in like film history, like the 40s through the 70s and stuff. But one more recent one that stands out to me, not necessarily being great, but I was just like really unique at the time when I saw Much Ado About Nothing, the Joss Whedon directed film. He basically, I think, just shot it in one of his homes.
Yeah.
He just got a bunch of his like friend actors around Hollywood to come for like a few weeks and shoot this movie at his house. There's a pretty direct adaptation with the script, but they just like did it for almost no budget, released it online.
My understanding is
that was a really cool idea.
Yeah, definitely. My understanding is that he actually, he and all those actors are good friends, and they on like the weekends get together and recite Shakespeare plays, over wine, I assume. And they just kind of decided one day, hey, why don't we just like shoot one of these things? And that's kind of what they
actually
did.
Does sound fun for a group of actors just to grab plays and like act them out and just like while hanging out with
just
each other,
just kind of sitting around the couch with a glass of wine.
Taking different roles.
Yeah, totally. Definitely. Unfortunately, we are not actors and we cannot partake.
Yeah. So what's one or a few of your favorites that stand out?
Yeah. So I've seen when I actually think about it, I have seen quite a few. And I've definitely seen more Macbeth adaptations than I think anything else outside of maybe Romeo and Juliet, just because Romeo and Juliet has been adapted 1.5 billion times. But yeah, definitely some of my favorites are Kurosawa movies. He has two in particular that are really, really great. Throne of Blood is a Macbeth adaptation set in kind of samurai era Japan. And then one of my favorite Kurosawa films, I think it's number 2 or 3, is Ran, which is King Lear, a King Lear adaptation. And it is a truly remarkable piece of cinema. And yeah,
so I have not seen either of them.
Yeah,
unfortunately. But it's interesting that like I guess he does have a lot of movies, but several of them are Shakespeare adaptations and some of his best too. Come from that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's also like, there's so many movies. There's like, even just talking about Macbeth, there's the Roman Polanski Macbeth. It came out, I believe, in the 70s or so.
Did you watch that on your Roman Polanski rewatch?
Yes, I did. And it was really good. I really liked that one. And
the like Macbeth recently from 2015. That's a little bit more epic, a lot higher budget, kind of focuses on, has really beautiful cinematography.
Yeah, and I think we should, when we get into our actual Macbeth review, we should kind of compare the different approaches to the story of Macbeth, like the Roman Polanski one versus the
2015
version. One that was
Michael Fassbender.
Yeah, that was like very visually, kind of all about those visuals and like epic landscapes and big visuals. But then it was like the way that they did those performances was different as well. But yeah, and then there's there's so much to talk about with Shakespeare. Like, I wanted to mention one more thing was Sleep No More, which we both saw, is
multiple times.
Yeah, both saw it multiple times, and that's like a kind of off-Broadway performance art type version of Macbeth.
Maybe we should have mentioned there's a fourth category of Shakespeare, and it's completely like balls to the wall, ridiculous experimentation, and that's what this falls under.
Yeah.
Go see it if you're ever in New York. It's still playing somehow.
Oh,
has
wow.
Not gone away.
So it actually survived the pandemic.
Yeah, it came back afterwards, and it's one of the most unique visual experiences I've ever seen.
Yeah, absolutely.
I guess I wanted to mention I've seen a few Shakespeare's live. I don't have like too much. I saw Much Ado About Nothing in Central Park.
Oh, nice.
Like outdoors, which was pretty fun.
That's so New York.
I saw Romeo and Juliet with Orlando Bloom in it, which actually was pretty bad. It's really weird, like modern retelling of it, like biker gang style.
Oh, wow.
But then one of the best ones I remember seeing was King Lear at Brooklyn Academy of Music, and it got like huge reviews before it came out. This was maybe like 2016 or something, and went to see it, and it was really well done.
Awesome. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, much more qualified people could go on for much, much longer about Shakespeare, but we are not those people. So why don't we just move on to this movie that we saw, The Tragedy of Macbeth. Tragedy of Macbeth is directed by Joel Coen, not the Coen brothers. This is like the first one in forever that they
is Ethan done? Credited. Is he over it?
I actually don't know. I have heard that, just total rumors and hearsay, but I have heard that Ethan retired and Joel wants to continue making movies, and so this would be the first one.
The Ballad of Buster Scruggs is the last co-directed film from them.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But yeah, so the plot description of this movie is it's Macbeth.
Yeah. Okay.
No.
No further details needed.
No, I would leave it at that, but it's kind of a funny plot description. It is a Scottish lord becomes convinced by a trio of witches that he will become the next king of Scotland, and his ambitious wife supports him in his plans of seizing power. Oh, she's so supportive.
Yeah, so ambitious and supportive.
Yeah. So sweet. So yeah, this movie stars Denzel Washington, Frances McDormand, Corey Hawkins, and Harry Melling. Little Dudley Dursley is in this movie.
And a few side actors I saw throughout, like I don't know, this is a huge cast. Like Macbeth has a lot of characters and a lot of names.
Definitely.
And you recognize a lot of faces.
Yeah, Brendan Gleeson is another one. Very Scottish guy from a lot of movies. But yeah, so you can see this movie on Apple TV Plus or in theaters. I believe it is still in some theaters, so go check it out. It may not be a movie that you absolutely have to see in theaters, but it has some really interesting visuals, and I definitely recommend it. It was shot by Bruno Del Bono, who did like A Very Long Engagement and Amelie, and
did not know that going into it.
I actually didn't either until I saw him in the credits, and so there's some really cool visuals in this movie that I thought worked really well on the bigger screen, which I saw it in theaters. I assume you just saw this movie today?
Yeah, I saw it online. I didn't know. That's cool. You went to the theater to see it. Was AMC showing it or a smaller cinema?
Yeah, just AMC. I just one night decided I wanted to go see a movie and went and saw it. Unfortunately, not on a really big screen, but it was it's still pretty cool. So yeah, Brandon, what you just saw this movie? What, a few hours ago?
Yeah. This early evening.
So this is a hot take. What do you think about? What did you think?
So I kind of feel like I did this movie right. I did Shakespeare right for the first time in a long time. Wow. And it was kind of spawned from when I saw like him many times in live, like in New York, not really knowing what's going on. Because usually when Shakespeare is done live, it's like the original dialogue. And unless it's Romeo and Juliet, I don't actually know the stories very well. And it is very easy to get lost in that.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe every like fifth line, you understand something small that they're saying, but then a bunch of like gibberish goes by and you're just latching onto little things here and there. So what I actually had when I was here is on my like second monitor, I just had the Wikipedia page open.
Oh, nice.
Just like the original Macbeth. And it just has like Act 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 2 paragraphs on each plot description. And I literally followed along as I was going. I think like if you go to the movie theaters, it would it's probably good to just read it all before you go in, and that would probably help. But I literally like was almost going line by line. Like my eyes would go back and forth every once in a while and read the next few sentences and be like, oh, that's what's happening here. And it helped a lot. Like I understood everything. Macbeth, it's honestly actually not that complicated of a story.
Yeah.
But I'm still glad I did that. It really helped, especially with all like how big of a cast it was. So I was able to like latch onto the story and really enjoy it this time. And I'm gonna continue doing that for future Shakespeare stuff.
That is not a bad idea, to be honest, because it's absolutely difficult to really follow a literal adaptation of Shakespeare.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting in the dialogue, like finding bits and pieces of it that you recognize as being like pretty like poetic and beautiful as it's going by. And it goes by so fast you don't get to like relish in it for too long, but you know, you can always go back and look at it in more detail. This adaptation of Macbeth, I think, is like, I want to see so many more like plays or Shakespeare or things done like this. I like maybe about halfway through the movie, I was like, this is so unique, and it's like the perfect middle ground between being on a stage and adapting it to a movie. Everything was so like minimalistic, but also like there was beautiful sets and beautiful lighting and editing and cinematography. Like it still was a movie, but the way the like locations looked and the amount of like characters and the background, it was all minimal enough to still feel like a play.
Yeah.
You kind of felt like you were like seeing it live in some form.
Yeah, let's so, you want to dive into that really quick just now?
I mean, I'm trying right now. What else?
No, I was just gonna like be a little bit more specific. It was very like impressionistic. Like, really, this is probably a bit more of an exaggeration, but remember Dogville, the movie Dogville with Nicole Kidman, where it's like takes place in this small town, but the entire town is just lines drawn on a stage.
Blueprints.
It's like a blueprint of the town. So it's like highly impressionistic. It's definitely not that, but it's almost in that direction. And Dogville's kind of the only other thing that really made me think of it. And everything from the architecture to the costumes it was just impressions of different things. Like armor was just like almost an impression of the fact that this person is wearing
toned down, right?
Yeah, toned down. Go ahead.
The backgrounds was a big part of it too, and that's same with Dogville. And Dogville, it's the opposite. Everything's just black, like just black drapes, like you're on a set. But this is like everything is like fogged out as it pretty close, like 20 feet behind them, it disappears into like a blanket of fog, right?
Yeah.
It's not like a plain white background, so it kind of feels more realistic, like things are disappearing into the whiteness. And it just gives it such a cool feel. And I think it's great because obviously, like on a more practical scale, this tones down the budget. This movie is probably way quicker and cheaper to like make and complete than something like Macbeth from 2015, which was like the opposite. It was like maximalized, like all these aesthetics. This one minimalized it, like you said, in an impressionistic way. And I think it would be really cool if creators took this more minimalistic approach to adapting plays to movies. They'd be able to do them cheaper, faster, and they would usually they'd feel more like honest to the original material without doing the full-on Hamilton style filming the live play.
Yeah, right? Definitely.
So I loved Joel Coen. Joel
Coen. It was
Joel Coen's like choice in doing this movie that way.
Yeah, it almost, I wonder how much of it was like out of necessity versus this is the movie that he wanted to make. Like this is what he went into this project wanting to do. Like this was his vision. This is his vision, and because it not only like forget about the budget and forget about how much money it saves. I legitimately think this is the way to do a literal adaptation of Macbeth, because like especially with Shakespeare plays, because back in the day it really was like very impressionistic, even to the point where when on stage you would change location, someone would just be holding a sign of where you are. You're in Scotland, whatever. They'd just be holding the sign. There would be no sets or anything like that. So I really appreciated that. And to bring back up Bruno Del Bonel, who shot this movie. Even the lighting was very impressionistic as well, like impressions of bigger spaces than they were actually shooting in, with like these big shafts of light showing, like these huge big cathedral shadows. Windows where light would be
like I'm guessing they probably only created part of it and used CGI to create the like extension of some of those huge black and white shots. Or I mean, it's not totally black and white, but
I don't know,
some of those huge like shots with shadows.
Yeah, well, I would guess the shadows were real. It was probably just a big empty stage. That's cheap.
Okay.
Big empty space. Yeah, it's not that hard to get big shadows, to fake big shadows like that. But
so that that's my impression. Is like, give me more of this. Like it was so perfectly balanced between live theater and an actual film. I want more of this type adaptation.
Yeah, definitely. And another thing I wanted to talk about is comparing it to other Macbeth adaptations. Like the performances in this movie were pretty starkly different from most movies in general, and especially most movies that most Shakespeare movies. Whereas like comparing this to the 2015 Shakespeare adaptation, like they were acting, they were like they were crying and whispering, and like it was not a stage performance, it was a film performance where you can get the camera and the microphone right up in their face and you're just like giving it, using all the tools to evoke emotion. Whereas this one was like a lot more refrained as well, where they would just kind of go through the, I don't want to say they were just going through the dialogue, because it really was more than that, but it was it wasn't those big swings.
There wasn't like blood curdling screaming and shouting of lines. There wasn't total emotional breakdowns. There was a few moments here and there, but it wasn't over dramatic.
And that honestly, for what was written, for the script, it really does work better. Or maybe not better, I don't want to say better, but it is like, it feels more natural, I guess, rather than it feels doing these more big emotive performances to this dialogue that no real human would ever actually say. It kind of feels a little juxtaposed when you're doing a very realistic performance with a very unrealistic dialogue. And I think it works really well in this movie, where it is kind of a more theatrical performance of everything, more toned down.
That's interesting. Now that you pointed out, like I'm seeing where they made those choices, and I definitely think it worked. I really kind of like appreciated, since we're not Shakespeare experts, like we've said, like learning. What did I say this? I said this with maybe West Side Story 2, maybe also Tick Tick Boom. Like I enjoyed being here in this like piece of history. I guess like while I was watching this movie, I was watching it through that lens as well, of like, and I was even looking it up on Wikipedia, like this story came out in 1603 or 1605. They don't even know the exact date. Like they're trying to pin it down. And I even think that some of the choice in the script, they shortened it. Like this play is supposed to be between 2 to 2.5 hours long, and the movie's about like an hour and 40 minutes. So they probably took some liberties and cut some things down from there. But just like as a piece of history, it's I was constantly had that in the back of my head of like people were performing this on stage in London in the 1600s of just like who was going to see these plays, like what types of people were enjoying this back then, and how many times it's been adapted over hundreds and hundreds of years. I don't know, just I know that doesn't have much to do with the actual movie itself, but for some reason while I was watching this adaptation this time, I was thinking a lot about how like it's crazy we're still seeing Macbeth
definitely.
as a movie.
Yeah, for sure. It's like it's, you know, we again, we're not experts, but there really is something about Shakespeare that is timeless, and it'll never go away. We will be doing, I'm sure we're going to, in 100 years, be doing new versions of Macbeth in different mediums and in different ways. And it'll just keep going. It really is timeless. I guess I haven't really given my impression of the movie.
What's your initial thoughts?
Yeah, my initial thoughts. Yeah. I guess like everyone probably already knows. I actually really liked this movie. It kind of blew me away. And Macbeth is a story I've seen many, many times. I've probably seen, I don't know, 5 or 6 different versions of Macbeth, maybe more versions of Macbeth. So I know the story really well, and you know that's a really good point that you were reading the plot description on Wikipedia with it. But with Macbeth, I'm able to just watch it and I know what's going on. So I'm really at this point able to focus on the dialogue and or the prose of Macbeth, and it's something that every time I watch it, I'm just continuously blown away by the beauty of the writing. This is no exception. This isn't necessarily special to this movie, but it's an incredible story. You see, you are right. It's not a super complicated story, especially once you know what's going on. But it is a great story. The tragedy of it, yes. the beauty of it, the humanity of the story, and the idea of kind of battling with evil, within Macbeth's psyche, is really great to watch, and it really is a great play. You don't need me to say that. Macbeth is a great play.
I guess I have stuff to say about that too while you're on that. Like I might maybe feel a little bit differently about it. Like I feel like we had this conversation before, and it was and now I'm remembering what movie it was for. It was the director of A Ghost Story, his new film, The Green Knight. Right? Okay. So I felt the same a little bit while watching Macbeth. I'm like, I'm watching like obviously like perfection in 1605, but to me there's gaps in the story that if done like rewritten now would exist to make it like actually work better. Like I think this movie spans so much emotion, or the script, the play spans so much emotion and a lot of time, and a lot of massive tragic story beats, but it's like super compressed because obviously they had to do it on stage in front of people live in 2 hours. It's super compressed, and I don't necessarily get like the weight of some of these massive swings that that this pretty great like tale takes. So I think there's and a lot of adaptations probably give it that more depth of like some of these background characters, some of the kids or the children. Like when one of them was getting crowned at the end, I was like I could have used like 7 different other scenes with this character, so I could have like felt a huge like thing when he actually like I don't know became king. I don't know. I'm not like ragging on Macbeth as a bad story. It's obviously great, but for me, that's like so much happens and there's almost no space between any of it. You're just like going from character to character as they're making these massive decisions that affect
that is
lives.
definitely true, and it's very different from the way stories are told today, whereas all of that actually I think does happen. Like you do really get all of the character arcs in, very complete character arcs in this movie. It's all in the prose though. It's all in those monologues.
And
it's all in that internal monologue that's going on constantly inside Macbeth's head and other characters' heads. And you get it's the journey really is in the language. And I forget what other movie I said this for, but it really, actually I think I said it for If Beale Street Could Talk. Is that the name of that? Barry Jenkins movie?
Yeah.
Where it's like what gets you to buy into everything is the poetic, the beauty, the language, where the language evokes the emotion necessary to get you to the point of buying into Macbeth's transformation. It's almost like you don't logically, even necessarily logically follow Macbeth's transformation. You follow it emotionally through the prose, through the language.
That's a good defense. I could totally concede to all of that, because here I am reading a sentence on Wikipedia and then missing the 4-minute monologue that character gives, and what it actually meant to that character to make that decision to kill all of Macduff's wife and children and send his army there to go destroy them. There is a huge disconnect there with me not understanding these monologues these characters go on. So it definitely
takes watching it 4, 5, 6 times to really be able to actually follow what is being said. But that's kind of where I'm at with Shakespeare in general. I realize we haven't even gotten into a spoiler section too.
I mean, I think you said that when you gave the plot description at the beginning. You're just it's Macbeth.
Yeah. So maybe we won't even do a spoiler section. But what was some of the things that really stood out to you in this movie? I'll just start.
Yeah, go ahead. I have a couple.
I mean, the witch, the witches, but the witch, all that stuff was so incredible. The scene where the double toil and trouble scene where they actually make the do the prophecy.
When they're above in the
on the structure of looking down, and then the room floods, and the visuals of that scene are so incredible and so eerie and so interesting. I was absolutely blown away. It's just cinema chills.
I was pretty into that scene. And I don't mean anything by it, but I was just interesting to note that was one thing where I noticed discrepancies in the plot description. I think they even simplified it. I think it's even more magical, in its original text.
Yeah.
I think they simplified the 3 prophecies to be given to you quickly and just with one potion that just kept telling him. When it was interesting, while I was reading it on Wikipedia, that scene, there's a lot more that happens with each prophecy, the way it's presented to him. And it's not just a reflection in the pond each time. Just some differences in those. I've seen several
Macbeths, and I don't know I can't really differentiate and say what is actually in the original versus what is pared down. So
that was a good scene. One small thing that I noticed was a lot of the sound design in the audio. I'm trying not to say state obvious things here, so this one was an unobvious thing that stood out to me. There was a lot of because it really wasn't overdone. It's a pretty quiet movie, and minimal, like we've said, in every aspect, including the sound. But there's like these like eerie things that they put in there every once in a while that like really gave like the tone and the mood, made it a lot more interesting. Sound design stood out to me. And we don't need to talk about Bruno Del Borno. Obviously, the sets, the lighting, the huge like contrasts. I really like the opening with the witch when she was just like doing straight up like contortionistic.
Yeah,
like
it was really cool.
Weird. That really reminded me of a play too. Like I was just watching that like live in front. They like had that whole visual way of how the witch like transformed out of like a crow into being an actual person.
Definitely.
There was a lot to like.
I also another scene that I really loved was the scene at the dinner party where Macbeth is really starting to break down, and
sees his friend that he just killed.
He sees his friend, and he like, he's screaming at him, and then it's like it turns out he's like just swatting at a crow. I thought that was one of the highs of that performance, where he was, it was kind of the biggest part of the I guess he was giving a bigger performance in that moment than
the normal tone downness.
I thought it worked really well.
The scene where he goes to senses like his hired hitman out to go kill that guy, I forget his name, and the kid, I thought was really well done. And then once like it's not an action movie, but once like the fighting started with like the flame torch, it just like got, I know, just really well choreographed and intense, like for a brief moment there. And the cinematography of the boy in the field, it's kind of one of the first times like the set looks a little different out there, like in the weeds, in the tall grass like that. That was just really well done. So visual with like boy laying on his back, trying not to be seen and everything.
Yep, definitely. Lots of great stuff. We could probably keep going.
But it's Macbeth. Go
see
it.
It's Macbeth. It's really
TV.
Interesting. It's a really great adaptation. Check it out. Do we know what we're doing next week?
We're probably honestly going to do a few more indie movies, and then we will soon, mid next month, we'll do our top 10.
Yep.
Round out the year.
Yeah, definitely. So
we're going to probably play it by year and deliver some more small content in the next couple weeks.
Definitely. Stick around for those episodes, and we will see you guys next time. Be sure to like and subscribe, and we will see you later. All right.
See ya.